Last weekend was Ram Navami, and this weekend will be Hanuman Jayanti. So it's actually a very nice time to be doing reflections on the Ramayana. And it's so nice to see this change in the spirit of devotion to Ramchandraji since the Ayodhya temple has opened. There's so much more reverence. Otherwise, before you hear so much about the controversies, but now you see such bhav in the animations and the bhajans so we've already reached Lanka, and Ramchandraji sent Angad as an ambassador to negotiate for peace. And so just to remind the bigger picture in Ramayana, Ramchandraji's birth was to help establish Dharma. And one of the ways he does this is to completely live it in all his actions. And so here there's just cause to have this war, to go in there and save Sitaji, but still an opportunity is given to Ravana to surrender, and an opportunity is given that things get resolved peacefully. Right? And so how do we also know when we are following Dharma that even if our first instinct is one of violence or something that has a lot of force, so not that anger that has that immense force, so that whenever that comes, don't act on it like that immediate reaction to want to do something. Definitely in my own personal experience, don't act on that. It's just, we never make good decisions when you're riding a wave of an emotion. So here too, Ramchandraji puts emotion aside. What's the best course of action? The question, how will we know what's the best course of action? The question is, what would benefit everyone? What is it that can be done right now that will benefit everyone? And so, obviously, at this point, getting Sitaji back without a war is what would benefit everyone. Ramchandraji needs to benefit by getting Sitaji back. Sitaji needs to be benefited by coming back home. And Lanka would benefit by there being minimum amount of destruction and violence. And so Angad is sent. And I already mentioned a little bit about this. Angad is sent because he's the prince. Right? And so it's in right. And actually when Angad gets to the court, I didn't go into the discussion too much because I hadn't read it, but things that I remembered I had already highlighted. Angad says, I've come to you because you were friends with my father. And so I too have come to you as a friend to tell you what is going to be the best course of action that brings you the least amount of pain. Which is really a interesting, nice way of putting it, right? Like I've come to you as, you were friends with my father, I've come to you also as a friend. Whereas Hanumanji was very much Ramadutta me Hanuman. And so is Angad, even though he starts that way. And before he leaves, because Angad's young, I mean, Guruji's commentary, Guruji says this, I think, 2-3 times. Angad is young. So the way he does things is a little bit more, well, one, hot-headed. When we're younger, we're a little bit more energetic, spontaneous. We're a little bit more carefree, would be a nice way of saying it, and careless is equally true. that those are just qualities that come with youth. It's just, I mean, and anyone who's been past that phase knows it's just qualities that come with youth. So before Angad leaves, Ramchandraji tells him, be very careful how you speak. And so here too, you see that, Bali had given Angad over to Ramchandraji. Here, take my son. I wasn't able to serve you, let my son serve you. And then here you see how Ramchandraji is grooming him to be a good leader. He's literally teaching Angad. Like when you're going to the enemies, now you have to speak in a way that you are heard, but also speak in a way that is helpful to both him and you, is what Ramchandraji tells Angad before he leaves. Speak in a way that is helpful to Ravana and you. Then Angad accomplishes this, I think, about maybe 50 to 60% of the time. So Ravana is incredibly rude, and condescending would be the perfect word for Ravana. He talks down to people. Now, Angad was not going to take this. And Hanumanji was more like, of course, he also didn't tolerate it, but Hanumanji was very much more praise of Ramchandraji. Where Angad, it's more like table tennis, the conversation here. So Ravana will say one thing and Angad immediately retaliates. And so, Ravana, of course, says, who are you? And so he answers initially, you are friends with my father and I've come with your friend. And then, but exactly who are you? And so he says, he's the son of Bali. And Ravana says, yeah, I remember some Bali. So how is he now? Because of course they know, right? They all have spies everywhere. And so Ravana would have already known that it's Ramchandraji that killed Bali. And so Ravana's question is very deliberately, like I said, condescending. It's very daunting. So how's your father? If you've brought him up, and it's this, because he knows already that Bali is already killed by Ram. And then in that back and forth, Ravana says, do you know who I am? Do you know who you're talking to? In that very arrogant kind of way. Of course, you should know who I am. And this is where Angad has a lot of fun with it. And he lists every single failure of Ravana. I know one Ravana who, and then failure number one. I know one Ravana, and then failure number two. I know one Ravana, and failure number three. And so every insult and every failure that Ravana has ever had, Angad seems to be very well updated about it. And I think the part that's really beautiful in this conversation is not that Angad is so forthcoming with his insults, because Ravana insults Ramchandraji and it bugs Angad. And so he insults Angad back threefold. And so things like he says, I've not killed you out of my goodness of my heart. And so he says, yes, I know all about your goodness. That goodness that made you kidnap another person's wife, that goodness that made you burn the tail of a messenger, that good. And so Angad's as condescending back, or as, maybe not condescending, taunting. Angad was very, very taunting back. And then, this was beautiful. At one point, Angad thinks to himself. He doesn't say it out loud, but he thinks it to himself. Like, how does his tongue not rot in his mouth with that he talks such that the way he talks, his tongue should rot in his mouth. It's like, and this is like a thought. He doesn't even say it out loud, and so there's this immense sense of like this is and his advice isn't also as gentle as Hanumanji. Hanumanji just says, surrender Sita ji and surrender to Ram, and Ramchandra ji will accept you. Here, he's like, not only should you surrender, you should put an axe around your neck because, give him the chance to cut off your head because you like cutting off heads, right? And then put a blade of grass on your teeth because you should not be able to speak. And the list he gives of how Angad should surrender, it's like, wow, that's like such an incredible lesson in humility when you go through the whole thing. But it's of course, Ravana is not listening, but he keeps, even though Angad's so much younger and he's disrespecting Ravana, Ravana keeps engaging, which is also a very interesting thing. Like a wise person just wouldn't engage. But every time Angad says something that scratches his ego and, he kind of wants to defend himself. And so I mentioned this incident last week, where finally, after all this back and forth, Angad says, thinking about Ramchandraji, he says, he bangs one. Oh, there was this one incident, which I didn't narrate last week, which was very cool. In the middle of all that taunting, Ravana insults Hanumanji. Even this, Angad doesn't like. And so already he's been taunting Ramchandraji, didn't like. Now he's taunting Hanumanji, didn't like. And so finally, Ravana keeps saying, we can destroy all these monkeys. Like, my Rakshasas are hungry. They'll just eat them up for lunch. And even there, it's like, what, you don't feed your Rakshasas? That they're standing around waiting to eat monkeys? And like, Angad is just so cheeky in the way he says everything. But yeah, at one point, he gets really angry. And he says, I'm enough. You don't need the whole army. I can destroy all of you here in this court. And he's able to say this. I mean, he was a strong warrior. Not that he's not a strong warrior, but he's only able to say this because now he feels that since he has surrendered to Ramchandraji, that he has Ramchandraji's backing. Right? Like otherwise it's arrogance. Otherwise, it's the same arrogance as Ravana. And that's why this conversation is interesting, because Angad is so much younger. There is still a little bit of arrogance. And like in Hanumanji, he's already grown past that stage. But with youth comes that little bit of arrogance. And of course, he's been brought up as a crown prince. And so maybe there is a little bit of arrogance. And so when he's speaking, it can come across just the same as Ravana praising himself, Angad's praising himself. But here the difference is when he says it with this conviction and then he delivers, he sees it through. So when he says, I can destroy all of you and take Sita ji back by myself, but that was not the order given to me. And I will not act other than what Ramchandra ji wishes. And so here you see this beautiful surrender. It doesn't matter what my capacity is. I will only do what Ramchandra ji has asked me to do. Then, it's easy to use that as an excuse. Basically, the ministers in the court will use, hey, he didn't give you permission is not the reason. You actually don't have it in you to be able to fight any of us. And now you're just using that as your security. So with both his hands, he squats down and he bangs the floor. Just hits both his hands on the floor. Okay? That's all he's done. He's not hit a person, He's hit the floor. And the whole palace shakes. And all the ministers sitting on their chairs fall. And Ravana's 10 crowns fall. From the impact of this, just Angad hitting the floor. And then it's this cartoon animation, you could do such fun things with this, because now he's trying to pick up his crowns from the floor. And there's 10 of them, and one went rolling this way and one went rolling that way. And so now you can imagine him in this hurry to pick up all the crowns. And while he is trying to pick up the crowns, Angad has caught 4. He's picked up 4 of the crowns and he's thrown them to Ramchandraji. And so Ramchandraji is sitting on the shores of the Lanka, where the army has set up camp. And then the Vanara, like Hanumanji and some of the other Vanaras, are on high alert. They're in Lanka. And then they're like, they've sent missiles. And because you just see these things flying towards you, right? Like well, how would you know? Now, this is already insulting, right? Dropping their crown. Everybody's fallen on the ground from him hitting the ground. He's not even hit a person. So they've already gotten a taste of Hanumanji's strength earlier, and now Angad's strength. No, these are not trifle displays of strength, but they continue. And then he closes his eyes and he thinks of Ramchandraji, and therefore he can say this because it's so brave to be able to say this. He bangs one foot, his right foot, onto the ground, and he says, if anyone in this room can lift my foot, then Ram will leave Lanka and you can keep Sita. Now imagine how confident he is that nobody is going to lift his foot if that's what he's saying. And again, like I said, it's borderline arrogant, right? But in his case, it's not quite arrogant because he's now completely absorbed his mind in Ramchandraji, and he knows Ramchandraji won't let those words fail. But also it's, even though he doesn't know this, because Angad hasn't yet met Sitaji, Sita Ma is Mother of the Earth. So it is said that when Mother Earth hears this, she holds his foot. So that it cannot be moved. And so they all come one by one, and he's laughing, but none of y'all can lift it, which means Ravana has to give Sitaji back. Then Ravana himself comes to lift his foot. And before he gets there, Angad moves his foot away and says, what are you doing? Touching a monkey's foot, which is more embarrassing. And then he says, and touching my foot, no good will come to you, but if you go and touch Ramchandraji's feet, you will be saved. Yeah. And so he's really embarrassed Ravana completely. So one, display of power to invoke fear in them, but he also gave good advice to Ravana and showed that they weren't scared. The Vanaras were not scared of the Rakshasas. Like every time Ravana tried to make it that they, y'all are just monkeys that we can eat. Like, we're not scared of you. You're not, there's not too many of us. You're not going to be able to eat all of us. And try and catch us to even eat us. We'll defeat you before you even get anywhere. So there's this has been very easily conveyed. But the thing that's really so incredibly embarrassing, that Ravana got up to go move his foot. And then Ravana in his own mind is thinking, what am I doing? What was I thinking? Like, why would I do that? And then really, why would he do that? And so we see he now goes back to Ramchandraji, because in a way, everybody already knew he wasn't going to listen, but we give him one possibly last chance to listen. And when Angad leaves, Mandodari is livid. She's so angry. And Ravana says, we'll win. And he says, when? When have you ever won? You wouldn't have been able to pick up his foot. You weren't able to save Lanka from burning when the other monkey came. You weren't able to save your brothers from being destroyed by Ramchandraji in the forest. You weren't able to save Shurpanaka from losing her ears and her nose. You weren't able to save your son. So, like I said, Akshay Kumar, Hanumanji had killed. And when Angad comes into Lanka, he meets one of Ravana's other sons. Name's not given, but also one of the younger sons of Ravana. And that the minute Ravana's son sees Angad, he gets very vocal and starts insulting and and Angad kills him like in less than a minute. This is they describe how the full fight doesn't last long. And basically Angad just lifts him up and throws him into the ground, and this is why kids love it. Super violent. This is why parents don't like it. And so as Angad's leaving, he says, "Now I've killed your sons." So yeah, Mandodari is like, you weren't able to save either of your sons. Like two of them, two monkeys have come, and two sons you've already lost. Like, how are you possibly thinking you're going to win this war? Like, give up already. Like, and she gives example after example after example. She keeps giving him of how he has already lost. In a way, he's already dead. And Angad had said that exact line. You already dead. Because you're not even listening. That delusion has already made you into a state of mind where you're dead. And also, like, it's just a matter of time where you're going to physically be dead, but already mentally you are dead because you can't see anything that's being said to you. But Mandodari's speech here is like so fully passionate. And then this Ravana, like, so the war starts, Angad leaves, and pretty much the next day the war starts. And the monkeys come in with all. Oh, so gung-ho, so full, so energetic, so 100% there. And within the first day, the Ravana's army is significantly reduced. Within the first day. And then the second day more reduced, and then the third day, I think it is, where Mahabharata lasted 18 days. This doesn't even last a week. They wake up Kumbhakarna. Now, who's Kumbhakarna? Ravana's brother. Ravana's brother Kumbhakarna is this. I'm going to come back to the Kumbhakarna story, but when he wakes up, he's all sleepy and he looks at Ravana, like just woken up from sleep and looking at Ravana. He's like, "What happened to you? Why you look like that?" It's the first thing he says to Ravana. Like, why are you so keen? And so Ravana tells him the whole story of starting with he kidnapped Sita ji. And Kumbhakarna says, "Why you did that? You foolish person. Why didn't you wake me up then so I could tell you not to do it? Why you woke me up now when nothing can be done?" And Kumbhakarna says, like, have you forgotten that Palasya, which is their grandfather, had warned you that Ramchandraji would come and don't fight him. And then somebody else had already won. And he said, and as he's told the whole story, Kumbhakarna realizes, Vibhishan did warn you. Narad Muni came some months ago and told us to warn you. And Vibhishan did it. He warned you, but you didn't listen. Like, why are you so foolish? Why don't you listen? This is not going to end well. We're all just going to die. Even now, if you want to, you can save Lanka. Who's saying this? Kumbhakarna. Mandodari, his wife, wow. Her speech is too good about what a fool you are. And earlier when Mandodari has tried to stop Ravana, she's been kind. She's used logic, she's tried to use reason, she's sacrificed, she's explained, she's tried to negotiate, but now she's just furious. And he's still not listening. But he doesn't hit her and he doesn't scream at her, which for Ravana is huge because everyone else who tries to stop him is very violent with. And that's her power. That's Mandodari's power, that he can't. Just like with Sita ji, he can't. Because that's her strength and that's her beauty and that's her purity. So everyone. So he goes to the court, and I think one of the other sons also tells him. So he's had son tell him, he's had wife tell him, he's had grandfather tell him, he's had brother tell him. Both brothers. Now even Kumbhakarna has told him. Vibhishan told him long ago, now Kumbhakarna has told him. And so I think when I was reading this, I was really thinking, why is he so dense? Like, why is he not listening? Like, which part of us does he really imbibe? And so here in the Riju's commentary, Riju says that Kumbhakarna is pride. But it's really Ravana. Like, we know Ravana to be this sense of ego. Right? So let's go back. I'm going to pause story and we're going to do Vedanta. The ego is the part of us that makes us feel separate. And the ego is the part of us that makes me feel me. And there is a sense of importance in me. Now, me need not have a sense of importance, but when ego is there, me will have a sense of importance. Now, a sense of importance is not just necessarily, I'm so great. Sometimes sense of importance is like, oh me, my life is so miserable. And that's how I make myself feel important. Or feeling a sense of injustice, feeling a sense of victimized, feeling a sense of loss. With ego entity finds interesting ways to make us feel validated as a individual entity. So ego is that limitation of me, the characteristics that make up me. Now, if you see, Mandodari will surrender to Ramchandra. Even Kumbhakarna, who in the commentary is said to be pride, is happy to surrender to Ramchandraji. Do you know how they get Kumbhakarna to fight this war? Kumbhakarna tells Ravana, I will not abandon you. I will fight. But what you're doing is wrong. And you should not have done this. And no good is going to come out of this. So he knows what's right and wrong. He knows he's going to die. Why does he do it then? Just loyalty to brother. Also, what is his life now? Just sleeping, eating. So, TK, it's time. Ramchandraji has come. Good way to die. So, how to fight? They feed him gallons and gallons and gallons of alcohol. Because in his right mind, he won't fight Ram. So he only tells Ram, go bring. And then when he meets Vibhishan on the field, the alcohol hasn't quite kicked in yet. So he hugs Vibhishan and he says, you're the only lucky brother You get to serve Ramchandraji. And our lineage is blessed to have you because you stood up to Ravana. You're doing the right thing. And I'm so proud of you. Kumbhakarna is telling Vibhishan. And then Kumbhakarna tells Vibhishan, now go very far because the alcohol is kicking in. And I won't recognize that you are my brother. I see. Who was Kumbhakarna? Pride. Even pride recognizes Bhagwan's glory and will, in some circumstances, praise it. Maybe even in another situation, surrender to it. But here it dies a miserable death. Usually pride does die a miserable death. But recognizes Bhagwan's glory. Pride also recognizes Bhagwan's glory. So Mandodari, usually wife in Vedantic Puranics, is intellect. Intellect definitely recognizes Bhagwan's glory. Child, parent, everyone recognizes. Only this, why Ravana doesn't? It's that feeling of me, ego entity, wanting to preserve itself. And what's everyone telling Ravana? Surrender to Ram. And every time, no. He's more powerful. You are never going to win. Surrender to Ram. No. This think of us, right? Think of whatever's happening in our lives. Whatever's happening. I'm getting old. That's what's happening in all our lives. And then we don't want to accept. Surrender to Ram. We're all going only in one direction. And then so much of us will accept that. Intellect will accept, yes, I should surrender to Ram. Even our pride, because now you're old, you can't have the same pride about beauty, about this thing, about that. You just won't. You won't have it. We hold on to it some way or the other, but not the same. Pride also willing to accept. We have to surrender to Ram. Right. Emotions will accept. We have to surrender to Ram. What in us doesn't accept? That we have to surrender to Ram. That's Ram. Whichever part in you that's refusing to surrender. Because see the story, huh? It's not like Ram's come and told him. Mandodari's wife is telling him, his Nana is telling him, his son is telling him, both his brothers, like these are, and this is us also, right? We telling ourselves, don't be so foolish. Stop this tantruming, or stop this pity party, or stop this running around in circles, or stop this. We tell ourselves. Yeah. And then there's a part of us that says, no. this no in us is Ramana. It's just so clear when I was reading it today. It's just so clear. Who is Ravana? What stops Ram? From ruling in our minds and hearts. And we want also, huh? We want that peace. We want Sita Ji. Sita Ji is peace. And so why can't he let go of her? Because we want peace. How to have peace? Give her back to Ram. Give yourself to Ram. No. We want peace, but we won't do the things that will give us peace. I'm so tired. Okay, so day one of the war. There's north, east, west, south. And the monkeys come charging in. And they really do cut off everyone's nose and ears. I don't know what the thing is here. They actually do now, huh? They start catching people and they start cutting off their nose and ears. And then Ravana's eldest son had gone into the court and said, "Don't worry, Papa, I'll fight." And it's interesting how he holds on to this. Ravana holds on to Indrajit or Meghnad. He goes by both names, saying that, "I'll stand by you." He holds on to Kumbhakarna, saying, "I'll stand by you." They're also going to just go down with you. Stand by you means fall with you. But so much people, and we do this too, We're fighting with someone and then somebody says, "Yeah, you're right." And then, we hold on to them so tight. So he goes into the battlefield and Angad totally beats him up. Then Hanumanji comes and totally beats him up. And then, so here we see that even though he is a great warrior, not that he's not a good warrior. I mean, Angad standard, Hanumanji standard, they're phenomenal warriors. So then he decides fighting, they're too strong. And so then they start using siddhis. Siddhis are mental powers. But what the kind of siddhis that they use in today's world is called black magic. Meaning it's usually very dark and sinister. So all the Rakshasas now, because the monkeys were doing so well in the battlefield, and Rakshasas are better and more powerful in the dark, they used their siddhis to make everything dark. Because the minute everything's dark, Rakshasas become more powerful. So Ramchandraji throws an arrow that makes everything light again. And this is where, in the Mahabharata also you see the small brief descriptions of one throws this arrow, one throws that arrow. Like here too, like Indrajit threw arrow of snakes, and then Ramchandraji threw arrow of eagles. Eagles eat snakes. It's like, wow. Like the monkeys, you can, like, this is why I said animation can be really cool. Huh? You can see the and the monkeys are like, wow. Just because they can't fight this. The monkeys can fight physically. The monkeys can't fight all these siddhis. So minute the Rakshasas are using siddhis or Rakshasic powers, then Ramchandraji or Lakshman come in and they just use one arrow. And it totally counters the Rakshasic power that was used too. So then they use, now Indrajit uses, before Indrajit uses that, Kumbhakarna has to be woken up. So again, this is awesome cartoon animation stuff. In fact, in that Japanese cartoon, they have a whole orchestra, like with, they have like these, these ting, ting, that you bang it like a gong together. And one person sitting on one elephant and one person sitting on another elephant, and then they banging the two together. They had to make so much noise to wake up Kumbhakarna. He still didn't wake up. And then they have like the whole army, and then in the cartoon, this is not in the Ramayana, they push his body and they keep like a swimming pool. So his face goes into the water, and then that's what wakes him up. Kumbhakarna is huge. So at the time of the Ramayana, they were already like very tall. They were already, normal height was 3 floors of stairs for us. 3 flights you all climbed. That was normal height for Ravana's, Ramchandraji's era. Then Kumbhakarna is bigger than that. Kumbhakarna would have been 4 floors, or maybe even bigger. So he was big in terms of height, and he was big in terms of weight. Now, because he had this temperament, we go back to the 3 brothers did tapas. They were born in a Brahmana family, so they were taught to do tapas. They had done tapas. And when Brahmaji came and asked them what boon they wanted, Ravana chose. He can't be killed by man or monkey. Even though his grandfather has told him he will be killed by a man, when asking for a boon, he was still so arrogant to say, sorry, he can't be killed by anyone except man or monkey. So only man or monkey can kill him, even though he knows that he's going to be killed by a man. So then Brahmaji went in front of Kumbhakarna to ask what boon he wants, and all the devatas got scared. What will he ask? Because he's so big and he's so strong already that if he asks for something, then how are they going to cope? So they begged Saraswati ji to make his tongue slip. You know how sometimes the wrong word comes out or the wrong sound comes out. And so instead of asking for power, he asked for sleep. And then he went with it. I'll sleep for 6 months. I'll wake up, eat for 3 days, go back to sleep. Now, already, if we do that, we'll put on weight solid. Sleeping after eating is guaranteed way to put on weight. That's all Kumbhakarna did. So he had put on a lot of weight. But he still had an incredible amount of strength. I don't know how long he had been sleeping, maybe not that long, because he was still incredibly strong. So they had to put all this effort to wake him up. And usually you couldn't wake him up before the 6 months were over. But because Ravana was so desperate, and already 2 days of the war, 3 days of the war, his army has more than halved. The Ramchandraji is winning by far. He's got his wife telling him he's making bad decisions. He's got everyone telling him he's making bad. And so he just needed to do something. And then Kumbhakarna is the biggest weapon he had. Because Kumbhakarna just so big that he squished people under him. So he didn't even have to try. So I've already said this, that he already scolded Ravana, but decided to support him and fight the war. He already praised Vibhishana and sent him off. And now in this alcohol-induced state, he's fighting. And he's squishing the monkeys by stepping on them or just grabbing them. And then it's Hanumanji, I think. Hanumanji or Angad? No, maybe Sugriv, sorry. Sugriv does fight him, and then Sugriv gets caught, and then again, this is another thing in the Ramayana. Kumbhakarna puts Sugriv in his armpit. And then in the armpit, Sugriv is scratching and biting, and then, ew. Can't imagine how horrible it would be. And then finally, the pain makes him let Sugriv go, and Sugriv escapes. I'm not sure who it is, but somebody cuts Kumbhakarna's nose off. This has become a thing now. Any Rakshasa they find, they catch. Cut nose, cut ears. And so now Kumbhakarna is taking monkeys and eating them. But they're crawling out of the hole. That's what makes it. And escaping. Like, it's so bizarre. All these details of this story can be so bizarre. It's like, but in a way, you know, when you think of how stories are made and how movies are made, Then there's different rasas, different sentiments that appeal to different people. And this one would be humor. And then there's also the sense of gross. There's the sense of romance. And then there's the sense of. And so you see that Ramayana as a story really does encapsulate a lot of this, guys. Even the grossness of the whole being put in the armpit and having to fight out of it. And then maybe so much of our journey we feel like that, right? Suffocated and trapped, and then hearing it in stories helps us to be able to see that there's always an out. So Kumbhakarna is running havoc on the battlefield. And finally, actually, up until this point, the Ramchandraji and Lakshman haven't been involved in the battle per se, but now at this point, Lakshman says, let me go and fight also. Yeah. And Lakshman's now fighting Indrajit. And then Ramchandraji realizes that it's time for him to also step into the battlefield. Although he doesn't do much after this, he comes in only to kill Kumbhakarna, because Kumbhakarna can't be killed by anyone else. Kumbhakarna, if you remember the original story, is Vijay. Gods from the heavens and Vishnu Bhagwan had given the boon that he only will kill them. So then naturally nobody else can kill Kumbhakarna. It has to be Ramchandraji. So Ramchandraji steps into the battlefield. And all monkeys stop. And all monkeys watch with bated breath. Because every time everything Ramchandraji did, all the Vanaras wanted to see. Like, don't miss this. It would be like today, when something's happening and everybody picks up their phone. record. Sometimes something will be happening, and then it's interesting because I'll see people with their phone recording, like at least 5 people in front of them with their phones, and then whatever they're recording. It's ridiculous, right? In that not wanting to miss anything, that's the kind of bhav that the Vanaras have, that Ramchandraji has stepped into the battlefield. And the description really is, he wields power with such immense self-control. And if you think about the kind of power Ramchandraji has as a warrior, this battle could be over. He can kill all the Rakshasas, but he doesn't. He lets the Vanaras fight the Rakshasas. So he has power, but he's not drunk on that power. Even earlier when they were trying to cross the ocean and he prayed to Varun Devata, could have burnt up the ocean. He has power, but he won't just use it. He wields it with so much control. Because when you have power, you have to be so careful with it. Power can be incredibly destructive. So he steps onto the battlefield and one arrow, just one arrow. He looks at Kumbhakarna and this is what Kumbhakarna knew was going to happen. And this is what he wanted to happen. And from some aspect, our souls also, we know that death is inevitable. And then to choose it the way that will benefit us. So Kumbhakarna would rather die at the hands of Ramchandraji now, rather than sleep again for 6 months, eat and then sleep and then eat and then sleep and then. And this thing, we laugh that Kumbhakarna has this boon where he just eats and sleeps. But that's our lives. Like, what did you do today? ate, going to eat, going to sleep. Then tomorrow, sure, you do a few other things. The just here, and sometimes when we go, I know for sure when I go back to Australia for holiday, what did we do the whole holiday when I was there in Australia? Eat. Then not just me, everyone goes to India. What did you do? What did you do in India? Okay, some people saw Taj Mahal. Very good. Some people went to Kumbh Mela. Even those who went to Kumbh Mela came back talking about food. Eat. What did we do? Eat, sleep, eat, sleep. Like Kumbhakarna's life is. There's that trend on social media where they say, breathe in, breathe out, repeat. Meaning like this is what we should do. What's another example? Eat, play, laugh, repeat. Is it one of the trends? I haven't seen that. I've seen some humorous ones, but now I can't remember them. Exercise, rest, repeat. I've seen more of these kind of ones, yoga kind of ones. No, you haven't seen these? It'll give you 2 steps and then it will tell you repeat, or it gives you 3 steps and it tells you to repeat. So something like clear your mind, let go of all anxieties, stay in stillness. Repeat. The ones I've seen are all very sattvic, but I definitely have seen a few funny ones also. But I can't remember the funny ones now. But this is our life. Eat, sleep, repeat. Day in, day out, day in. Kumbhakarna's only. And then maybe we're not. Maybe we're doing so much in the day. Why are you working so hard? So you can eat. Literally. Literally working so hard so we can eat. During COVID, right? When nobody was going out, people were spending hours cooking and then so much cleanup. Why? So that they could eat. And then make yourself tired so you can sleep. Kumbhakarna is this mundaneness of routine that we just do, this repetition that is so mindless. And yet, in this mindless repetition, we get proud of what? Just some arbitrary thing we'll get proud of. Yesterday, somebody was saying they walked from here to here. Some random thing. We'll be so proud. I walked so far. And we'll all do it. I only use biodegradable products. Proud. I never ask anyone for help. Proud. Something we'll find, some arbitrary thing that we feel so proud about. But motive for doing most things, eat, sleep. But Kumbhakarna knew right from wrong. And Kumbhakarna had devotion for her, which is most of us also. But he doesn't choose to act in a way that is devoted to her. He chooses to act against her, makes himself intoxicated, mindless. When we get stuck in routine, we become mindless. Discipline is different. When we have discipline, we in routine and we repeating. But there's a discipline is done to create sense of balance. But just lost in routine, mindless. We become mindless. And so Ramchandraji steps onto the battlefield, wind blowing his hair back, not forward because that would be cool. And the sun almost like a spotlight on him. Pulls up his bow, takes out his arrow, and shoots. And this humongous Kumbhakarna falls just in with one arrow. Is Ramchandraji's strength. And that's, with all of us too. We can get stuck mindlessly in routine, or we can get so lost in our pride about random, arbitrary things. And we have to remember Kumbhakarna's advice only. Go and surrender to Ram. Or, like Kumbhakarna, go and stand in front of him. Be ready that he'll shoot. And welcome that arrow that's going to destroy in us mundaneness and delusion and that inability to do what we know we should do. Welcome that arrow that destroys that. Because Kumbhakarna did, he welcomed Ramchandraji's arrow. He saw it as a way of becoming finally free from this curse of, well, he was cursed, of being a Rakshasa. When Kumbhakarna falls, Ravana is devastated. Here in this bit of the chapter, we see Ravana's pain. Even when Angad killed Ravana's son, here we see. During Hanumanji's incident, maybe the Tulsidas ji was too distracted talking about Lanka being burnt, etc., etc. But here we see Ravana is genuinely distraught to have lost his brother, to have lost his son, to have lost people he loves dearly. When we lose someone, wow, we get so shaken up, and it propels us to think. But not Ravana. He's still not letting go of that. No. Surrender to Ram? No. It's costing you your sons. It's costing you your brothers. No. What stubbornness this ego has. We'll pause here for today. Tomorrow we'll see. Not tomorrow. No class next week. Because I'm in Bahrain. I'm not here. We will resume the week after. Any questions?
So division correct to move to the other party, like Kumbhakarna stay, like Mahabharata, Vishnu stay with them.
Vibhishan did the right.
It's a bad name for it.
Vibhishan gets a bad name? No.
Till today, the same words, right? Darga, baby, Lanka, that. Vibhishan gave the secret away of how to kill Ravana. He has a bad name.
Really?
Yeah.
No, not in ashramas. Vibhishan
No.
doesn't have a bad name in ashramas. Hmm. No, Vibhishan did right. Karna has a good name and he deserves one tupper. Oh, सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामय सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति 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 हरि ओम श्री गुरुदेव हरि ओम।